Well, we had a huge challenge, as I'm sure you're aware. Congress eliminated all funding for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, thereby eliminating in one fell swoop all the funding for all the public radio and television stations in the United States. So there were kind of two parts to this. One, that happened, and then they also clawed back funding that had already been appropriated. What that really means, Christian, is that we immediately lost almost $300,000, money that was already in our budget that we were expecting. So we had an immediate challenge where we had an immediate loss of funding, and then of course we had funding loss, for perpetuity, years and years to come. So it really jolted the whole system. But what we had to do is we had to just, reach out to our listeners and explain the situation and say, here's what happened, this is what this means in practical terms, and here's how you can help. So that was, I put the station on the air, it'll be 32 years ago. In fall, in my 32 years, that was by far the biggest challenge I have ever faced. But we were able to rise to the occasion. Actually, our listeners were able to rise to the occasion, and we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this together. "2025 was the scariest year we've ever had, and I think the most exciting year we've ever had, because, as you know, public radio is primarily listener supported, okay? So when we lost all of our federal funding, like we just talked about, it was jarring. But what we did is we said, here's who we are, and we're going to tell the story. We're a news organization. We're going to explain to our listeners, explain to the community what happened, what this means for them, and how they can help. And I have to tell you, we went on the air and we did just that. We said, this is what this means. First of all, we're not going to eliminate any of your favorite programs. We don't want to do that. We exist to serve our listeners, to serve this community. They need us for breaking news. They need us for emergency services. They need us for their everyday, news from when they wake up to see what's happened around the world and now what's happening in their own backyard. We are deeply committed to service. And so I said straight away, we're not going to cut your programs, and we're not going to cut local news. And that was really important, Christian, because local news across the country is suffering. We have news deserts in the United States, just like we have food deserts. And local newspapers are folding. We've all read these stories. What I'm so proud about is KCLU is deeply committed to local news. We are hyper-focused on local news, and I'm very proud of the service that we provide in that way. So I wanted to reassure everyone that we're not going to cut your programs, we're not going to cut local news. And as a matter of fact, we're doubling down on our service with local news and even expanding more in the digital platform and making sure that nothing gets lost. So that accomplishment was just explaining the situation, letting people know, don't worry, we're going to be here for you when you need us, and then asking them, to please come along with us. Listener support is our strength. Here's what you can do to help preserve the service that you value so much. So it was both a terrible year and a frightening year, but then also a year that was filled with promise and with people just rising to the occasion and showing their support to KCLU like we've really never seen before. So that was exciting. We are always going to have boots on the ground, feet on the street. We're always going to have real reporters doing real work in our communities, in the communities we serve. So many radio stations just, do rip and read, and they try to pass that off as local news. No, we are your local news station, and we're deeply committed to this community. So our goal in 2026 is to continue to do what we've always done. We put our listeners and the community first and be hyper, focused on delivering local news. We also, because we lost all our federal funding, we also developed something called the Resiliency Fund, which is very exciting. And I'm going to be talking about that in the next months to come. That'll be rolling out. But basically what it is is some very generous donors stepped up and said, how can we help? And I've developed a resiliency fund, and we are asking for multi-year gifts. And it's not just from the very, wealthiest donors. That's wonderful, and I appreciate their support, but those are, a small group. I'm asking everyone, whether someone gives $100 a year, maybe they could give $150 a year or $200 a year for multi-year gifts. And then these donors are going to match everything that they give. So it's an opportunity to make people's gifts go twice as far. And why this is so important is the headlines are going to fade, Christian. People are going to kind of forget about this. And we have to ensure that KCLU is here today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. So our goal and our hope for this year is that people will hear about the Resiliency Fund, they will step up, they will make a commitment for 3 or 5 years or longer, have their money get matched, which is so generous, and we're so grateful for that. And that is going to not just help KCLU to survive, because it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. And I can tell you on behalf of Lance Orozco and myself and the entire KCLU team, we are here for the long haul. We are going to continue serving this community with the same passion and enthusiasm we have for the last 3 decades. And I want everyone listening to this and seeing this to know that we are not going anywhere, that we are going to continue to serve you and be there for you in good times and bad. And I just invite everyone to please go to kclu.org, find out more about the Resiliency Fund, because as I always say on air, you are the you in KCLU.